Hi everyone, this is Sherry Taylor and I'm going to talk about cognitive apprenticeship, which is basically a theory of learning from the constructivist movement. It is hard to talk about cognitive apprenticeships without contrasting first the traditional apprenticeships, since they are much more commonly known. The traditional apprenticeship takes place within the environment that requires a specific set of skills. These skills are not necessarily generalizable to other environments, since the skills are hyper-focused for that specific environment only. The experts teach by coaching and mentoring, and they slowly build the skills towards independent function, and usually that training is a one-to-one contact. They have much more real-world experience than any classroom can offer, such as real demands, real clients, team building, and independent motivation. Probably the most primary skills that are learned are called soft skills, and those have to be learned quickly or you don't last in your apprenticeship. These soft skills entail getting to work on time, staying away from drugs, being respectful, dressing appropriately, etc. Cognitive apprenticeship takes place in the classroom, building problem-solving skills through guidance and experiential learning. The skills are much more generalizable as opposed to the traditional apprenticeship in order to fit a broad range of employer demands. The teacher is the skill-building expert responsible for multiple students at the same time, which requires awareness of each student's progression through the program. The cognitive approach is more common in graduate education, but is highly recommended at all age levels. I will address the process of how this takes place on the subsequent slides. Constructivism is the theory that you learn through your experiences. The great beauty of CA is the incorporation of sociology into education theories to formulate how we learn for long-term retention. One of the biggest complaints by employers today is the lack of problem-solving skills in the younger generations. The ability to look anything up in Google or not understanding the purpose of every lesson can cause a lack of interest in the classroom. The CA approach teaches how to come to the right answer through their own means. In order to understand where the original CA started, we need to go back to 1989. The authors Brown, Collins, and Dubois first published the CA theory. They broke it down into 6 easy components in order to understand how this pulls together. The first is modeling, which is basically just learning by an expert by watching them go through the task so that you can then repeat it back. The coaching is what the expert does, and they help guide you through all the different steps that are involved within whatever task it is at hand. The scaffolding is going to be touched upon by other students in the class, so I'm not going to get too into that. But basically, it's breaking up the different tasks into different pieces and starting with the simplest and then building upon that so that you become an expert on that task as well towards being independent. There's articulation and reflection, which really go hand in hand. Articulation helps students to retain the problem-solving process in order to complete that task by repeating their process and their thinking through that particular problem to somebody else. And then reflection is basically looking back at their solutions in comparison to other solutions to that same problem and see how things measure up. Exploration is a very important component within the classroom to provide the experiential learning process in order to promote their true understanding of these individual tasks that they need to be working on. There are a variety of operational processes that would take place during the implementation of CA in the classroom. The first would be clarification, teaching the students how to clarify, using prediction in order to help them understand what the problem is, reciprocal teaching in order to trade back and forth with the teacher, because we all know that we learn best when we teach. And then scaffolding is also considered an operational process. And students take the role of producer and critic with their peers and with their teacher during this process. To further define the operational processes that would need to take place within the classroom, the first is clarification, which does play a large role. The students need to be comfortable within the classroom in order to ask questions so that they can fully understand the task at hand. Now, this clarification can be with either the teacher or with team members. Prediction And I have here that it sets the tone for forming hypotheses. But in that context, prediction is being able to look forward instead of just being in the moment. So as an example, if you want to think ahead about what an author will say next if you're reading a book as an example, it allows the mind to kind of have an imagination and dream of different scenarios that could take place. Reciprocal teaching is teaching by providing examples of how the process works so that the student understands what's going to be expected, and then they can reflect upon their own experience with that. Scaffolding, we've already discussed. But number 5, students take the role of producer and critic. This is really important because we learn when we teach, and this is the opportunity for them to be able to do that. So as an example, if you were using CA in the classroom to teach math, you don't know how to solve for the answer, but you can break it down and try to figure out a way to get to the answer. It helps to promote understanding of the problem and perhaps find new ways to find that answer. It's about problem solving, but primarily find the correct pathway to the solution, and it helps to reinforce the understanding of the problem, and that process is then transferable to other problems. CA is not without its critics. Long-term success depends upon how well the students grasp problem-solving skills, which is difficult to teach directly without guidance and practice. It is not easily accomplished without repetition and continuity. Environmental impacts can sway outcomes for students. Utilizing real-world problems can help students understand the why we need to learn certain tasks, but it may not be necessarily practical in the classroom. For example, there can be discussions about various soft skills and how important they are, but attempting to teach those soft skills may not be possible in the class setting. Media used in the classroom can also have a direct impact on how well students understand and learn, since people learn in different ways. The experiential learning process has been found to be positive, but can have mixed results when different types of media are used for delivery, such as online, face-to-face, or mixed classroom settings. Teachers need to learn skills and practice deploying CA in the classroom. It is not a simple process to implement. Success also depends upon how well the teacher can monitor the progress of each individual and respond appropriately to their needs and understand and learn. Having expert guidance is not necessarily going to be the teacher. Sometimes external assistance could be needed. Here is one of the better graphics that I was able to find in order to show the various CA components and how that interacts between the students and the instructors. So here we have down the middle all of the components. Now they're named a little bit differently. It seems like every author that I pulled up had a little bit different naming conventions to the different components, but they all do the same thing. So we have methods, content, sequencing of material, and sociology. But basically what it boils down to, it's the same things that I've already reviewed. So the students would contribute and learn through articulation, reflection, and exploration. So that would be the methods components for the students. And then the instructors would be doing the modeling, the scaffolding, and the coaching in order for the students to improve on each of these methods, and so on and so forth down the line. So it kind of gives you an idea of how this is set up. Probably the most important component of this entire CA process is going to be making sure that you have an expert, whether it's the teacher that goes ahead and gets that expertise, or whether they bring someone else in order to help coach and mentor these students through the process, because it depends upon what kind of tasks they're going to be working on as to what kind of experts are going to be needed. And I don't see where a single teacher would be able to have all of that expertise that would be needed. Even if you're just focusing on math, there are so many different ways of doing math now that it would take a lot of people in order to be able to do that. So anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you.